Hey everybody, welcome back to Taproot TV. I'm Benny Hughes and I'm back again today with Mark Paradise, President of System Improvements, creator of Taproot. We have a great topic today. He's always writing these amazing blog articles, and this one's on, let's see, root cause analysis and keep it simple with that.
Keep it simple, stupid. KISS. The KISS philosophy.
Yes.
Keep it simple, stupid. And it's always a reminder to myself to keep it simple because, it's harder to keep things simple than it is to make them complicated.
Yes,
In fact, your tendency is to make things more complicated and more complicated all the time. And what did Einstein say?
He said, make things as simple as possible, but not simpler.
So if Einstein's thinking about making it simple and
He's
he wasn't
smart.
a rocket scientist, but he was a physicist. And
He's very smart.
Pretty smart guy, and he said keep it simple. He didn't say keep it simple stupid, but pretty darn close.
Well, I really love this article that you wrote because it kind of, you go through a list of what common expert advice is. And you kind of, what you say is debunk or demystify what they've said. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of feed you these common expert advice, and you can let us know your thoughts about them. Debunk away. All right. Well, let's start with, it's a waste of time to use full root cause analysis on every problem.
That's one, I want to debunk it, but
Yeah.
it's one that I sort of agree with. And that is because some people do too much root cause analysis. You've heard people say, well, every medical treatment case needs a root cause, or maybe even not every lost time injury needs a root cause. Well, maybe they do, and maybe they don't. The question is, what the purpose of root cause? What's the purpose of root cause? You want to learn.
Yes.
You want to learn something to prevent bad things from happening in the future. Well, if this medical treatment case if it's never going to become anything more serious than what it was, if it doesn't have any lessons learned that are going to prevent some fatality in the future, then we don't want to use full root cause analysis on it. So what you want to do, and what we teach in the 2-day course, and what's in the book 3, the Essentials book, is that you probably, if you think this is worth investigating to start with, you start with your snap chart, and you develop your snap chart, and you see what there is to learn. And then you stop at one point, and this what you say is, hey, stop. Do I go on? And the answer may be, well, there's nothing really to learn here. I mean, the person fell down, they bruised their knees, and they scuffed their palms, and they went to the site medical guy, and he put some stuff on the cuts to keep them from getting infected, and it was a little bit of medical treatment, but there's nothing really to learn here.
Right.
We should just stop there and not go on to the rest of the root cause analysis. However, if we find out there's something more serious to learn, and I'm not sure what there would be in this, you may decide, hey, I want to go on and keep investigating, find root causes, and develop some corrective actions, and they may help do things in the future. So the answer is, if there's something to learn, you learn it. If there's nothing to learn, you stop. And so that's why I would agree with this one. The key is, though, a lot of times at the very start, you don't know if there's something to learn or not until you do your snap chart.
Right.
Your snap chart gets you the information, so you really do need to do a certain minimum amount of work just to know if you want to keep going or not.
Well, this one's a good point for when we had a call in about a year ago. Because what happened, anytime an incident, somebody had to go to the doctor because of something, it got elevated to having an investigation, and it was a person was walking down the sidewalk and swallowed a bug.
Oh!
Well, it got in his lung. He ended up with lung issues after that and had to go to the doctor.
So we're going to have everybody wear face masks.
So they called us one to know what is the common sense right on this.
Where's the bug in the lungs on the root cause tree?
Exactly. But that's when the kind of
I hate to say that don't do root cause analysis. Yeah. Yes, I did say it. Don't do root cause analysis. But the swallowed bug one may be a good example of there's not much to learn there.
There's not.
Keep your mouth shut. Don't go. Don't walk around with your mouth open.
And have a pest control company come around or something. That reminded me of that one. All right, number 2, people can't understand complex root cause analysis techniques.
and I've heard this a lot from people who are quote unquote experts out there. Oh, these complex techniques. And then they make it sound like every other technique but theirs is complex. Maybe they're doing 5 whys and everything else is too complex. You can't teach that to people. And actually, our first big refining client, I was talking to the ops manager, and he said, "Oh, this is good for engineers, but I don't know if our guys in the field can understand this." And so what we did was we did a course for all of his union reps for all the different units. Every unit had a union rep. We had them all in a course, and we taught them a course. And then after the course, they did a feedback kind of thing. And so they brought in one of the HR kind of people because they didn't want to upset these guys because they're union reps. And they said, "Okay, guys, what'd you think of the course?" And they're, "Oh, yeah, it's a good course. I like the course. Yeah. Well, do you think you could do this?" And I remember the one guy, he was an older guy, and he goes, "Well, if I could run a cat cracker, I'm pretty sure I could do this. This wasn't rocket science." And they all were, "Yeah, we can do this. This is no problem." And so the answer was, this is no problem. We can do this. And so it's not, somebody might say it's complicated because it takes training.
Right.
But the training makes it easy to do or easier to do. The biggest hard part about doing an investigation is collecting good information.
Right.
Because if you don't, I don't care what technique you're using, if you don't collect good information, you're not going to do a very good investigation. Or at least you're going to have a lot more questions when you start your analysis than if you did a good collection of information. So the key is it really isn't complex. And when people start throwing out this, "Oh, they're complex, or you can't do that," that's not true.
Yeah. We've already built all the expertise in.
It's
so
built in.
You don't have to be the expert.
You don't need, and that's another good point. We kept it simple in the process, so people, that's the other expert. Well, they don't get into all these complex human factors things that only I can investigate. No, we got that in there.
Yep,
And it's simple. So everybody can do it.
If you can ask and answer a question,
You can do it.
you can do it. All right, number 3, learning simple techniques will get people to start thinking deeper about problems. I love this statement you put in this about learning to count is required before you learn calculus, but counting over and over again does not teach you calculus.
Yeah, it's the old, well, if they can ask why, then pretty soon they'll be a PhD. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to ask the right why questions, you have to have the knowledge to ask questions. And what we proved I used to, every time I did a 5-day course, I'd ask this question: how many people here have been trained in human factors, some kind of formal training? I don't mean went to the university, but you had some kind of human factors course, and you know about how to ask the right questions to find the cause of human error. And I would probably, out of 100 people that I was teaching, I'd have 1 or 2, maybe 3, more likely 1, and sometimes none, raise their hand and say, "Oh yeah, I've been taught." So, and then I'd ask the question, okay, how many of you here have been asked to investigate something where there was a human error? And almost everybody would hold up their hand. And so we're asking people to investigate things they have no training on how to do. And why do we think they're going to have problems? Why do we think that there's going to be a problem doing that? Well, because you're asking somebody to do something they don't know how to do.
Right.
And so when you say, well, if they ask why enough, they're going to become deep thinkers now. No, that's not going to work. That's totally debunked. It's not going to happen. You have to have the knowledge to ask a question. So we built the knowledge into Taproot. That's the whole key of Taproot, is the knowledge is built in, and especially on the human performance side of things.
It makes me feel so smart when I go through that tree and stuff and ask those questions.
Yep.
Number 4, simple is just about as good as those fancy techniques.
Oh, that's the good old fancy techniques thing. So this is once again the expert saying, you don't want to do those fancy things. You can just do the simple one, and you'll get just as good a results, or sometimes say almost as good a results. But usually they say just as good. And there is no way that's true. There is no way asking why 5 times is going to get you where Taproot gets you to.
Right.
And we've already talked a little bit about that, because people don't have the knowledge. How are they going to go there? But the other thing I always like is, everybody who tells me this says, well, 5 whys could do this. I say, well, where's the examples? Whenever I see an example of a 5 why, it's a bad example. And usually the person presenting it thinks it's a good example. It's a bad example. And I don't know how many of these we've done where we've printed up, here's a 5Y example. Is it a good example or bad example? And including the one from the guy who invented 5Ys, it's a bad example. So
I think you have an article about that
I have a bunch of articles
Yeah.
about that. And if you go to the, anytime you go search 5Ys on the blog, and you'll see
Yeah.
lots of articles about it. But the key to this is, you just can't get there with 5Ys. You won't get to the depth of the investigation. And if you look at investigations done by 5Ys, they don't get to the same depth. So we published this one about, let's see, what was the topic that this investigation was about? Oh, it's the one where the robot stops. It's the one by Taiichi Ono. And he says, well, this robot stopped. Why did it stop? And they go through the whys. And in his example, the reason the robot stopped is because the lube oil clogged up with metal shavings, and it caused it to lose its lube oil, and therefore the bearings froze. So he says, well, that's the root cause. There's no filter in there to catch these shavings, and we're going to go on. And I think, well, that's not a root cause at all. So we did a comparison in one of the articles we've done in the past where we did his root cause to what Taproot would get you. And Taproot gets you like 5 or 6 things to go look at that go deeper than that.
Right.
5 or 6, not 1 or 2, 5 or 6.
And things you want to fix.
Oh yeah. So then this guy who's a quote unquote expert, he came up with, he could ask 17 whys and get to the same place we got to. And I'm like, okay, first off,
Okay.
17 Ys is
a
a
lot
little
of
bit
Ys.
more than 5.
It's a lot
I don't
of
think that's a
Ys.
simple concept anymore. And the other funny part is, yeah, if I give you the answer, I'm sure you can come up with enough Ys to get yourself there. But we gave you the answer to start with. When you did it without the answer given, it was metal shavings, we need a filter. And that didn't...
That doesn't even sound like the end of the story.
No, it's not even close.
Not even close. Well, and with our new 2-day class, the more streamlined ability to do this, I've been talking to more and more people who on the phone, some of our clients that love this because they are frustrated with 5Ys. And they're trying to move their people away from 5Ys as best as possible. And it's lovely to hear.
I have a relative who works in a factory, and they trained I can't remember, the ops manager, one of the managers, to do 5Ys. And he says, now we'll have something go wrong, and they'll call us in the office, and they'll ask us why 5 times. And he goes, we answer his questions, but if we knew what was wrong, we'd just go fix it.
Right.
We don't know what's wrong. That's the problem. And that's the whole point.
Wow. All right. Well, number 5, managers don't have time to do fancy root cause analysis, and they already know what is wrong.
More of that fancy stuff.
More fancy stuff. It sounds like a little bias.
and we already know what's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, that's always a dangerous sign when
Yeah.
we say before we start the investigation, we know what's wrong. Because what do you find out usually?
That there's more wrong?
There's
That
you
haven't
don't
come-
know.
You have
You
no
don't
clue.
have a clue. You think you know. That's the problem.
That you had a good quote in this too. Why is there never enough time to do it right, but there's always enough time to do it over?
Yeah, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And the other one, I really, there was a plant manager that I knew who I was trying to convince him to do more root cause analysis, and he was like, well, gosh, if we investigated every incident, we'd never do anything but investigate incidents. And I'm sitting there going, well, maybe that's because you aren't investigating them now, and you should be
Right.
preventing the problems from happening over and over and over again.
Exactly.
So there is time to do it over, isn't there? We always have time to do it over and over and over.
Necessity.
Think of how much time you could save if you did it right the first time.
Exactly. I agree. Number 6, you can apply those complicated techniques to just the most serious accidents. I had a call this last week that shocked me because they are somebody who's been using it on the lower to medium, and they're getting excited about hopefully getting to use it on the major incidents, and
No.
they've been using something else, and we're sitting there going,
First off,
wow, you're one of the first people we talk to who does it this way.
if you have big accidents, you got a problem.
Yeah.
You don't want to have big accidents. You want to prevent them by doing the low to medium
We were
risk
so
ones.
tickled to hear that they were using it all.
Now the good. Let's hope they don't have too many big ones to do it
Yeah.
with, so they don't learn too much that way. The second part, and maybe even a third part, is that the second part definitely is if you're only using it for the biggest accidents, you don't get practice using it. You hopefully don't get practice using it very
Right.
often, right? You don't get much practice on this, so you got to use it on the small to medium incidents, or what I would call precursor incidents, ones that could have caused something worse to happen, and you learn from that and prevent the big ones, and you get practice.
Yes.
You get practice, you get practice, you get practice.
You don't want to have to be brushing up if a big incident does happen. You want
No,
to be
so
good to go.
so the idea of just using the other one is big accidents are hard to investigate. Why? Why are big accidents hard to investigate? Well, part of it is it was a big accident. Everybody's afraid of blame, right?
Sure.
And you don't want to. Somebody died.
Right.
You feel bad about it. You don't want to get blamed about it. You don't want to get blamed by your peers. You may know something and don't want to say it because you think somebody else will get blamed. And so it's really hard to learn. And the dead person may have more information than anybody, right?
Oh, wow,
and they're
yeah.
not here to talk.
No, they're not.
So you really want to learn from the ones where everybody's still here and nobody's afraid to talk about it because nothing really bad happened.
Yeah, we don't want those bad things to happen, that's for sure. Number 7, the data from the simple investigations will help you identify the more complex issues you need to solve.
Okay, Benna, I want to see that formula that you put bad data in that produces good results.
Yeah,
Where's the formula that you stick the wrong numbers in and it gives you the right answer?
Yeah, now.
That doesn't work that way. If you got bad data, more bad data doesn't make it good data. And I've seen so many people say, well, we'll just get more data and then we'll have big data, then it'll be good.
Big bad data.
It's big bad data, exactly right. And that's bad. So you really want to get good precursor data to tell you what's going wrong. And if you have any major accidents, make sure it corresponds to your precursor data and use that and really manage that precursor data to help you say, where am I going to focus my improvement program and how am I going to get better, which is what the training course is all about.
Well, and we tell people too, use your tree while you're asking questions to get the good data. Use it in the investigation, in the gathering evidence part of everything. All right, wow.
So I would like to mention a couple books
Yes,
people should read.
these are great books.
If they haven't got book 1, which is the book on doing root cause analysis, leadership lessons learned. That's the one for management that sort of tells you the philosophy of Taproot and how this is going to work at your company. If they haven't read that, they ought to read it.
Right.
The second one is if they haven't thought about how they're implementing Taproot. We've got a book about implementation. There's actually a checklist in there. I think it's 15 things to check to make sure your implementation is good.
Great.
And it'll give you a way. And when you do that, if you want somebody here to work with you, we'll do a roadmap for you of how to improve to get there in all those 15 categories, right?
We're doing a lot of those.
Yep.
And clients are loving it. It's almost like we're helping you manage a program in a way. I
Yep.
mean, we're giving you the guidelines to stay proficient, to make sure everybody stays on their toes, make sure the right training is in place, everything so when you are ready to go, you're set and you're not having to overthink everything. You've got a zillion things to do. So we do this.
Exactly right.
That's what we do.
And the last thing I wanted to mention for anybody who hasn't been to a 5-day course is to go to a 5-day course, because you learn there both the simple way to do simple incidents, precursor incidents, and how to investigate major accidents.
Yes.
And you'll then see the link between the two ways we do it and how the same tools for a major accident are applied in a simpler incident, and how that practice you get on that simpler incident is going to help you be ready to do that major accident. And those simple incidents then are going to they are sometimes aren't so simple. I guess I should call them low to medium risk incidents, are going to give you the knowledge you need when it's time to go do
Yeah.
that next big one, or maybe the corrective actions you need to prevent that big one from ever happening.
That's our
So
hope.
that 5-day
Yes.
course is something really important for people to go to.
It's a great course, and when I've been to it, I've listened to the people. It's like the light bulb goes off in their head. I mean, and they're just like, "Oh, this was it. This is what I was looking for." And if you're interested in that, we can definitely help you with that. You can go to our website and see all the courses we have around the world. I mean, we're everywhere, pretty much. It seems like
www.taproot.com.
that's right. /courses, and you'll find it.
Oh, you're going to give them. They don't even have to click
They
on the
don't
link.
even have to click the link.
All right.
But yeah, so go there. You'll find where we have our public courses, and you can register right online. Or if you have about 10 or more people, we can come on site. We love to come on site. That's our favorite thing to do.
Yep.
And come and work with your team, just us and them, and really help with your program. So feel free to contact us, info@taproot.com. Give us a call, 865-539-2139. Follow us on all of our social media.
I have such a hard time doing that. I always put my own phone number, my cell phone
Because
number
you're always
in.
calling yourself.
Yes, exactly.
But we are all over social media. All this stuff that we put out every week, just tons of this information. And if you want,
We should mention something here.
What?
They need to see. I'm sitting this way. The subscribe button is
Subscribe
down
button.
there. They should hit the subscribe button.
It'll be down
and
there,
hit the
right,
little
Josh?
bell. Hit the little bell down there so you get notified when every one of these is posted.
That's a
Because
very
you're
good
supposed
idea.
to subscribe and you're supposed to hit the little bell, and you'll get a little email that tells you, hey, by the way, a new one's been posted. You can watch Benna on Taproot TV.
Mark, that's why
Yes.
he's the president. He remembers these things, like subscribe and get notified.
Down there
So
someplace.
please do that. We want you to join us. We want you to take part in all of this information. It is free for you to use and share with your team. So we want you to do that.
Yep.
So we appreciate you for joining us. Mark, thank you. I learned a lot today.
Thank you, Benna.
I'm like sweating now. I've learned so much.
It's getting hot in here.
It is hot
It's
here.
been a hot topic today.
That's been a hot topic. But thank you, and we will see you back here next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.